Hello everyone. In this video, I'm going to show you how to configure Cloudtrail with Elasticsearch using SQS notifications. So as we can see, this is the final product. This is our dashboard right here, and it's using the file beat module of Elasticsearch to configure. And what this file beat module does is it takes an AWS SQS queue link as input, and from this SQS link it keeps polling for messages, and each log is then saved, and a graph is created like this. And as we can see, different types of graphs are created, specifying in this one here each API call, each function that's executed is given here. And it's a very in-depth dashboard giving us a lot of information from Cloudtrail. So I'll start from right from the beginning. This is how we create a trail. It's logging only management events, and hence the name. It was auto-named that. So it's logging all management events, so like start instance or update role or anything like that. It logs and it sends to an S3 bucket. So this is the S3 bucket that it creates. As we can see, it's AWS. It has a folder named AWS logs, and so we configure this S3 bucket to send this information every time something happens to the S3 bucket. Every time a file is created, it must give a notification to an SQS queue. And how we do that is, on an event of object creation, it sends messages to an SQS queue. So the destination that I created, I had to create another queue. I named it CTQ2, and I sent all my event notifications to this CTQ2. So every time an object is created, it is sent to this queue. And here is our SQS queue. So initially, there are two ways that you can go about creating a queue. So you can do it directly from Cloudtrail, or you can do it from S3. So Cloudtrail has a function where something happens, you can configure it to send messages to a queue. And another way to get information about when an event happens is from S3. So whenever something happens in S3, you can configure S3 to send notifications to the queue. So Elasticsearch requires you to use the S3 option, where whenever S3 more like file beat module requires you to do the S3 option actually. So whenever S3 gets an object created, it has to send a notification to a queue. So this is the queue that I created, and you have to specifically give it permissions to be allowed to be given notifications from S3 bucket. So over here I have allowed all, so everyone can give notifications to this particular queue. But if you would like only S3 to send, then instead of this star, you can input whatever the ID of the application that you are using is. So we take this URL that we receive here, and we send it to our file beat module. We put it in the filebeat.yml file of our module, and that file I'm running in an EC2 instance. I'll show it right over here. This is my EC2 instance that's running right now, that has filebeat running. So it runs like a server. It's like a server that keeps checking for information from the SQS queue, keeps polling for messages, and sends this messages to Elasticsearch. And how it does that is, I'll show you right here. So we can connect to the EC2 instance, and sudo nano. I'll show the filebeat.yml file. Below I have my Elasticsearch log information, so I do not want to show that, but you put in your config details in Elasticsearch itself here of Elasticsearch. So you put in your the link that you receive. So it's like authorization information. So you have authorization information, and you have a specific link to your cloud. So you have to put in both both those values in your filebeat.yml file, right? It's called cloud ID and cloud.auth. And you set this log to enable to true. So you want it to log your information. Now I can show you the AWS file. Oh, yeah. So this is the aws.yml file. You put in the queue information here. So this is the link to the queue and all your access information. So this access information will change because mine is a student account, so it changes all the time, so it's okay. And so you have to put in your ID, your access key, and your session token, and you set this Cloudtrail enable to true. So it's going to take information specifically from Cloudtrail only. You have other options like CloudWatch, EC2 logs, ELB, uh, all different kinds of logs here. So that's one thing about Cloudtrail and filebeat.yml. And you run this setup to actually set up all the information that you've put, and at the end of your setup you run sudo service filebeat start, and that starts your filebeat module to start polling for information from the queue. And you send that information, and then you wait for a while and refresh your dashboard, specifically your Cloudtrail AWS dashboard, and you can see it takes a little bit of time, but after a while all the log information starts coming up here. And now I'll show you how to get information directly from Security Hub. This cannot be done in a student account, but it is possible if you have the permissions. So it's done with something called Event Bridge. Event Bridge is basically something, it's a part of CloudWatch that on a particular event you can configure it to send a notification and log it to a particular log group. So how that is done is you create a rule, you name it whatever you like, event pattern. So this is what starts the event bridge. So what event will get it to run. So you select your service provider as AWS. So this is only for AWS services, and you can select Security Hub right over here. So if you select Security Hub, select event types, all events, and this is what this is going to do is anytime something happens in the Security Hub, it'll know that something is going to happen, and I need to send and I need to send a notification to someone. And now the target, so this specifies where your notification goes or where your data goes. So what you want to do is CloudWatch log group, and you create a log group. So you create this log group, and this log group will write to an S3 bucket, and that S3 bucket in turn you can send it to a queue, and that queue, same thing, put the link in the filebeat.yml file, I mean aws.yml file, and it will pull information from that queue. So if you have a student account, this is the error that comes. So let's just name it logs, and enable log group. But give it a name. Let's name it sec hub. And when you try to create it, you realize that your account is not authorized to perform this particular task. So but if you do have the particular permissions and authorization to do it, then you can easily follow the exact steps that I mentioned, and you would get a similar dashboard like this. So this is a Cloudtrail dashboard that you get with the help of Cloudtrail. So that's how you set up Cloudtrail with Elasticsearch, and you configure using the filebeat module. And thanks a lot for watching.